Frost here with the Caledonia Culture Club Revival, reading a little excerpt from the Vermont history book I picked up, published in the 70s. Neither miller nor blacksmith expected, though he might hope, to be paid in hard cash. There were so few coins in circulation then that some old folk could barely recall when they had seen coins, let alone held any in their hands. What they did have, unless accident deprived them of it, was their strength and their willingness to apply it to needed tasks. Purchases were made by barter, which usually included services in the arrangement. The Coventry historian described a situation that might have occurred in any Vermont town of the early days. On one occasion, when 2 bridges were to be built, the town voted that the inhabitants turn out voluntarily to build the bridge at Burroughs Mill, and that $45 be raised to build the bridge across the Black River, payable in labor at 67 cents per day, or in grain the 1st of January next. The 1st of January next was an accepted date for the settling of debts. After pouring out that in a remote village like Coventry, transportation costs added materially to the prices folk had to pay. The writer gave a fascinating description of the process of paying up. Another circumstance which increased prices was the goods that were sold mainly on credit and for barter pay. The almost invariable terms were that the payment should be made in produce in the January following the purchases, which, if the customer failed to do, he was required to pay cash and interest within the succeeding year. January was always a busy month with the merchant. All the teams in the vicinity were put in requisition to carry produce to market. And when 10, 15, or 20 two-horse teams were loaded and started for Portland, the merchant took stage or private conveyance and reached that city in season to sell the loads and make his purchases so that on arrival of the teams, they might be immediately loaded for the return trip. A long and cold one. Should Portland have failed to offer satisfactory prices, the merchant sent his teams on to Boston. When at long last the railroad line extended into northern Vermont, Portland declined as Boston became the marketplace of choice and prices in Coventry began to drop. The whole system, of course, was based on the integrity of both settlers and merchants. Once there was some kind of road built, direct teaming to Boston from Cabot was done by Robert Lance. His team was 2 yoke of oxen, freight, salts, whiskey, pork, and it took from 4 to 6 weeks to make the round trip. He usually made 2 trips a year. In 1838, Allen Perry began to run a 6-horse team to Boston, regular trips, the round trip taking 3 weeks. The freight tariff was $20 per ton, his expenses about $50 per trip. When he came in with his big covered wagon, it was quite an event for the place. He ran his team until 1846 when the railroad got so near, he sold his team and went to farming. And that was an excerpt on bartering. I myself see this as a gold mine for the people of Caledonia who have upheld the settlers' very protective and, shall I say, old world, let's work together. Everyone's responsible for the upkeep of this community. Yeah, you're paying into it, but